Hey guys, it's Nicole. I'm back with another video, and today's video is going to be about a play, actually. So we are talking about books as usual on Fridays, but today's going to be about a play specifically. Before we get into that though, I wanted to say if you have subscribed to my channel, thank you so much. I see every single subscriber and every number that goes up makes me feel so good. So thank you for being here and subscribing. If you haven't subscribed, that's okay, but please subscribe. It costs absolutely nothing and you'll get notified when I upload new videos. And even though I have a schedule for that, you never know if that'll change or if I decide to upload new content. Also, if you end up enjoying this video or think of someone who also might enjoy it, please share this video and also like and comment. I want to hear your thoughts. I want to know you're here. But share this video, you never know who also might like it. All right, that being said, let's go ahead and get into the book we're talking about today. The book that I wanted to talk about today, I actually just finished reading. It's a play. I picked it up sometime last year in 2025. Can't remember exactly when. But I saw it in the bookstore because I don't always go and buy new books, but when I do, I'm just always looking at new things and picking things up and bringing them home. And I saw this one and I was like, that is a classic. I know that title. I know the name. I have no idea what it's about, but I know it's a classic play, a classic American play. So I wanted to read it. So honestly, that's the big reason why I decided to pick it up. So today's video is going to be about Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. If you haven't heard of it, this is a classic American play that became a movie. So most people have probably heard about the movie. I think around the 1950s is when it came out. Because this was also when the play was written, so it might have been around the 50s or 60s that the movie came out. But most people have probably heard about the movie, and that happens a lot. A lot of movies are based on books or plays, and that's probably what you might have heard of. But it was originally a play, Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, by Tennessee Williams. The playwright's name is like right there. Is an American classic. Tennessee Williams he's written so many plays. Like, I actually didn't know how many plays he had written until I opened this. There is a little catalog, a little list of all of the plays, poetry, and prose that he has written. That's everything Tennessee Williams has written. That is a lot. Playwrights and also novelists and writers, there's never a limit to how much they can write. There's also never a minimum to how much they write. So sometimes you get one and done. Someone writes an amazing book or play or something, and then that's it. They're good. They got their message out. They're done writing. And then sometimes you get people like Tennessee Williams, apparently, who just wrote all kinds of things. The other thing that Tennessee Williams also wrote was A Streetcar Named Desire. If you haven't heard of that, I'm kind of shocked, because even before I really got into theater and knew like a lot of things, I had heard of A Streetcar Named Desire because it's such a classic name. People make fun of it, people spoof it, people talk about it in all forms of media and art. And that is something that Tennessee Williams also wrote and then was also then made into a movie later on. So I'm gonna go ahead and read the back of the book to give a little bit of a context as to what the play is about. So on the back of the book, it says, it has a little sentence at the top that just says the definitive text, because as we'll talk about a little bit as this goes on, this play has so many versions of itself that it's I guess this is what they call the definitive text, but there might also be people that say, no, the true play is this version, so who knows. But it says the definitive text of Tennessee Williams' Pulitzer Prize and Drama Critics Circle Award-winning play. There is a review quote right underneath that also says, Williams' most impassioned and articulate statement on human isolation, the wrenching problems of communication between people, and the ways in which death defines life. And that's by Ben Brantley from the New York Times. Now into the blurb. The sensuality and excitement of Cat on a Hot Tin Roof first heated up Broadway in 1955 with its Gothic American story of two brothers and their wives vying for the inheritance of their dying father, Big Daddy, amid a whirlwind of sexuality untethered in the person of Maggie the cat. She's a person. and the burden of love repressed in the person of her husband, Brick Pollitt, Williams, as he so often did with his plays, rewrote Cat on a Hot Tin Roof for many years. This version was prepared by Williams for the American Shakespeare Festival production in 1974, with all the changes that satisfied the playwright's desire for a definitive text. Edward Albee, one of America's greatest living playwrights, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, The Zoo Story, Three Tall Women, the play about the baby. I've only heard one of those. I only know one of those. As well as a friend and colleague of Williams, has written a concise and perceptive introduction from a playwright's perspective. This edition also includes a short chronology of the author's life and works, Williams' essay, Author and Director, A Delicate Situation, as well as the insightful Swinging a Cat, in which Williams scholar Brian Parker describes the various versions, rewrites, and changes William made to Cat over more than 20 years. So that's what the back of the book says. It is basically like a blurb in terms of what you get when you read plays anyway. Gives you a little bit of what the play is about, but also gives you the other context that matters when you're talking about plays. When it was first produced, what version this is specifically in this instance, because like it even mentioned on the back, there were so many times that Tennessee Williams was rewriting this play. And they kind of touch on that in both the introduction to this book by Edward Albee. It says on the bottom, introduction by Edward Albee. And I think even the excerpt in the back of this book by Tennessee Williams himself kind of touches on that, of like why certain playwrights will either write their work and then leave it alone and never touch it again, or they'll constantly be rewriting it and redoing it. So there's a little bit of interesting insight into that in both the introduction and the excerpt in the back. So for plays, obviously I don't usually read the first page because it's different with plays. I'm not reading one person's perspective. There's a bunch of different people talking, different characters saying things. So I will show the introduction is only 2 pages by Edward Albee in the beginning. It's really only like 2 pages. It just goes to there. And then as you go into the play, it does say, "For Maria" is the dedication, whoever that is. And I will describe the characters a little bit. It mentioned the characters on the back, but I think it kind of helps know if you might want to read this play, if you kind of hear about the characters a little bit. Because the story, like it says, they're just vying for their inheritance, is the 2 brothers is what they're doing. So the 2 brothers are Brick and Gooper. This play takes place in the Deep South in, I think, the 1950s. Like, I think it takes place in the present day that it was written. So people either had those weird names or they were nicknamed those weird names. But Brick and Gooper are brothers. Gooper is the older brother, and yet Brick is the one the story is mostly about. Like, we know most about him. And Brick is married to Margaret. Now, Maggie the cat, like it mentioned on the back, is not a cat. She is a person. Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, the name of the play, is a metaphor, and Maggie the cat kind of plays into that metaphor. And I'll discuss it a little bit at the end of the video if there's anyone that wants to listen to my spoilers. And the 2 brothers, like I said, bring their wives to the big house, like Big Daddy's house. So Margaret is Brick's wife, and then May is Gooper's wife. And May and Gooper have like 5 kids, another on the way, and all the kids are running around causing chaos. And Brick and Margaret don't have any kids, and that is a point of contention in the play. And then Big Daddy and Big Mama are the parents of Brick and Gooper, and we get to know both of those characters a little bit, especially their relationship. Big Daddy has a huge plantation, land that he has built up, that he's accumulated over his life, that he oversees, and the 2 brothers are, mostly Gooper is the one that's really fighting to win the inheritance from their father. Brick is indifferent, you could say. There are some other characters that come into the play. There's a reverend, there's the doctor, and they have some servants in the house. Now, one thing I want to mention about this is an American classic. It's from, the era when classics were being written. There is something about this play that, now they don't use the really, really shouldn't be said N-word a lot in this play. At least they don't refer to the servants that way, at least a lot. That word does come up, so I will say that the N word does come up in this book, but the way the servants are referred to, even in the description of the characters, is they are the Negro servants, and people described Black people back then like that. We don't today. Obviously, it's very outdated, not the way we do things today, not appropriate. So you can tell it's from a different era for sure. But yes, there is definitely once that I remember for sure the other really shouldn't be said, at least by people that look like me, N-word in this play. I think a character says it, but I could not tell you which character it is because I actually don't remember. So I don't know how bad it is. I don't even know if people still produce this play, or if they do, what version they do, or what they do, if they do the original script like here, or if they kind of edit that part out. I don't know. I actually have never seen a production of this, so I don't know what to say about that. It was not okay, but very normal for people to say that back then, especially in the Deep South. I can say that I spent a good amount of my life in the Deep South, so I know that it is, even up until 20 years ago, still very widely used. And so it's I don't think I'm going to find it, because it might have even just been once that it was used in this play. But it is a thing, and it does happen. And so those are the characters of the book. You do see, like, they don't really have any lines, but you do see children, like May and Cooper's children. They may have like 1 or 2 lines. But the servants do have a couple of lines in there, but mostly the story is about the family and the wives that married into the family. So it's a really good description of the play that this person who said this quote on the top of this page back here on the back of the cover, statement on human isolation, the wrenching problems of communication between people, and the ways in which death defines life. That's a really good way to describe what this play is, because it takes place solely in the house of Big Daddy and Big Mama, and it's the family and the wives kind of just having incredibly tough conversations in their own ways, because they don't necessarily have conversations in a respectful, communicative manner. It's like getting things out because they just need to say something, even if they're not saying it nicely or respectfully. And then just dealing with the backlash that comes with those statements. And so that's really what the play deals with. It's a family dealing with incredibly hard things of life, honestly. You know, the things that are very difficult for people to talk about. A couple's ability to have kids, a friend's horrible taking of his life, the possible impending death of a family member that might be happening sometime soon. And so that's really what this play deals with, is how those conversations might go in a family such as this. So I don't know if I can say I loved this play or I didn't like this play. I feel like I understand why it became a classic, if that makes sense. Because, like I said, when you read this and you read the conversations that go on between the family members, it's, at least for me, similar enough conversations that I've either heard other family members of my family have conversations like this, or that I've been a part of, you know? And like I said, similar enough, because everybody's family is different. But it deals with those difficult topics that pretty much every family is going to have to deal with at some point. You know, there's always going to be death. And so dealing with those conversations leading up to that is always going to be hard. And so that's what this kind of deals with. Especially people who are especially people that are in the acceptance phase of it or in the denial phase of it. And so that's really what I took away from this. And it's so hard to say. I don't know if I could say I loved this play. I think if there's anything I loved about this, I loved the way the character Maggie was written, Margaret, Maggie the cat. She's not a cat, she's a person. I really liked her character a lot, and reading her it was just interesting because this may be a hot take, but normally, and this is just me, normally I find that when men playwrights write women characters, I always find that it's never very accurate. It's always very stereotypical. It's never a fleshed out character. It's just how men see women, basically. But I don't know, there was something that Tennessee Williams did with Margaret in this play that made her feel like a more comprehensive, even three-dimensional person to me, like an actual person and not a character. So I think that might have been what really held my attention most of the time, other than the drama, because who doesn't like listening to drama, especially family drama? So I think I really liked that. It's hard to say if I liked the play itself. I liked the way that it went. It's a 3-act play, and the third act, I read in the introduction and in the back excerpt, is that the third act is what was so controversial for Tennessee Williams himself, because he was like, oh, I don't want to add this, or I don't want to do this, and so there were so many things that were huge points of contention for him. And then this is the version that he's most okay with, being like the definitive version of his play. And I could see why, and like I see where he was going. Like I understand why he wrote it and why he wanted certain things to happen, and I could appreciate what it was, if that makes sense. So for me, it's hard to say, yes, I loved this play, but I really enjoyed the way he wrote Margaret, and I liked the way that the play ended. Let's put it that way. I liked it. I thought it was a very good ending for how the play just was. It just felt very realistic. I don't know if this is something that should be brought back into like curriculums or maybe the zeitgeist. Like, I don't know, because it was like a story of like, oh, a typical American family. But it was a typical American family in the 1950s. So it's like, how accurate is that, in the sense of like, is that even accurate for how actual like typical families were in the 1950s in America? Or is it just like, this is what is most relatable to people, to specific people, to a specific demographic of a typical American family, So I don't know if this book should be popular again. I understand why it was a classic. I understand why I still know its name today, why I heard the title before I even read the play. So I don't know. I kind of have mixed feelings on it, honestly, but let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you have any thoughts, maybe you've read the play, maybe you've seen the movie, I don't know, but let me know what you guys think. That's really all I have to say in a general sense. I am going to go into a couple of spoilers, so if you are interested in the movie or reading this or anything and you don't want any spoilers, now is the time to close out the video. So couple of things that I like that are definitely spoilers that I wanted to talk about is the metaphor that is cat on a hot tin roof, and therefore the nickname of Margaret, Maggie the cat. So cat on a hot tin roof is a metaphor that is first said by the character Margaret in the book. And she refers to herself as a cat on a hot tin roof because of her situation in her marriage to Brick. Her marriage to Brick is incredibly complicated, and they're only still married under certain conditions because, without going into a story too long and making this video way too long, Brick had a best friend since high school named Skipper, and they played football together. They did everything together. And one of the themes throughout the play is this kind of tiptoeing around implications and never said out loud that Skipper and Brick were in love with each other. And Brick is always constantly trying to deny it, and for me, I'm like, I still don't know where this is going. Did they actually love each other and he's just trying to deny it, or is something else going on? And the reason it's a point of contention between Margaret and Brick is because in order to try to prove that Skipper was gay, she was like, well, if you're not gay, then sleep with me, while she was married to Brick. I never said I loved Maggie the character, like Margaret the character. I just loved that she was written as a very realistic person. So yeah, she's kind of not nice, and she and Skipper sleep together, and he kind of realizes that he didn't feel anything when he slept with her, and he was like, oh my god, I am gay. He calls Brick and he's like, I'm having these feelings, and Brick's like, no, I don't want to hear anything, and Brick hangs up the phone, and Skipper, I don't know, they didn't say how, but he takes his own life. And so Brick is an alcoholic, and he is incredibly just like depressed and constantly needs to drink in order to not hear that click in his brain that he hears all the time when he clicked the phone off or clicked the phone down, because he didn't want to hear what Skipper had to say. And then Skipper's now gone, and Brick is incredibly just done with Margaret, doesn't even love her anymore, doesn't want to be with her, and yet is still with her under certain conditions, but he doesn't treat her well. Like, he doesn't listen to her, he doesn't love her, he doesn't give her any affection, he barely looks at her. And she is determined to stay married to him because she describes herself as a cat on a hot tin roof. She grew up incredibly poor, and by being married to Brick, if he inherits his father's land, which is what she's trying to trying to make sure that it happens, she will no longer have to worry about being poor. And so she compares herself to a cat on a hot tin roof, where it's like, nervous as a cat on a hot tin roof. Like, the cat's on the hot tin roof, it's scared, it can't do anything, like it can't, you know what I mean? And so that's where the metaphor comes from. And so she is Maggie the cat. And I thought that was a pretty cool metaphor. I understand where they're getting it from, and I do miss the days when plays were named like after metaphors or things like that. So I did appreciate that a lot. The other thing that was incredibly interesting to me was how they ended the play. Is originally Tennessee Williams wanted to end the play where Big Daddy doesn't come back on at all in Act 3. He was like, he has this big storm of a conversation with Brick about the fact that he is going to be dying because he has cancer, but Big Daddy is in denial about it. And then he storms off, and then that's it. And we don't see his character again. And I kind of understood why. But as is described in the back of the book excerpt by Tennessee Williams, the director who originally directed the play was like, we can't do that. We need to bring him back. We need to do certain things that are going to get the audience to want to come watch and to come see things. And so he ended up relenting and letting the character Big Daddy come back on. And I kind of understood why he wanted to not have him come back on for Act 3. Just have him in the wings. You hear him screaming out in pain because it's like colon cancer and he's like in pain. It's like a whole organ related thing that he feels pain. And I kind of understood that. I was like, okay, so I see what he was going for. He has this incredibly, and he was screaming, storming off the stage, Big Daddy, as the second act ends, and is in denial and is like, I'm gonna live forever, and kind of goes through this very fast process of being in denial and then bargaining and like all this stuff, like kind of fast process of grief as he storms off the stage after Act 2. And I could see why that Tennessee Williams wanted to leave it at that and just have Act 3 be just the other characters. And so I thought that was really interesting reading the play and kind of wondering where things would go in Act 3, and then having Big Daddy come back on, and I'm like, okay, well, what's going to happen now? Like, he knows, he's been told he's dying now. Does he believe it? What's he going to say? Like, it, you know, it's, and then reading that excerpt by the playwright himself being like, I didn't want to do that, I had to. I'm like, that's interesting. But clearly, you know, he was okay leaving it like this and having this be the definitive text that he's like, yeah, this is it. So he was okay enough to leave it in there, to have Big Daddy come back on in Act 3. And so it's interesting. I do kind of want to read one of the other versions that doesn't have him come back on in Act 3 and just kind of see what it feels like, because I could see why. He has this huge thing, and then he comes back on. It's almost like weirdly anticlimactic when Big Daddy comes back on, you know? So it's like I kind of want to see what it would be like if he didn't. So those are really the things I found most interesting. I really loved reading the excerpt at the back by Tennessee Williams. He describes what it's like to be a playwright when you hit your first success, and then what you need to do to be humbled, because you can't constantly be like, my work is this and we're never changing it ever. And so it was incredibly riveting to read just a playwright's perspective on what it's like to make it big, like write a play that like is a success, but then you still write other things and you still need to listen to other people. You can't just write something and then be like, well, this is it. If you don't like it, then don't be here. Like, this is it. So I really think I like that part more than the play specifically. But that's really what I thought about Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. It's definitely understandable why it was an American classic. And also I can see why it's not really read or talked about that much today. It's honestly, other than the themes of the human isolation and the heart-wrenching family troubles that every family is going to go through, other than that, there's nothing to me that feels extra relevant today or even in just the last 30 years. So I can kind of see why it's fallen out of like people mostly knowing it. But let me know if you guys have read this, or if maybe you read it in high school. I don't know. I certainly didn't, but let me know in the comments. I want to hear. I don't know how popular this play is anymore at all, honestly, but let me know. That is all for this week's video. I just want to thank you all so much for being here. It's 2026, and so we're going to, you know, I've hit the ground running. Like, I have plans for things, and I'm so excited to share things with you guys. And I honestly can't believe that I've been doing this for over a year now. My channel is over a year old. That is absolutely bananas. I love doing this, and so I hope you guys all stick around and even bring some friends to the channel. Stay tuned. There's going to be new content, all kinds of fun stuff for 2026. So stick around, and thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you all in the next video.